3 elements. Okay, so it's started streaming to the YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel should be, no, that's what I'm currently showing, so we can go there, and the YouTube is there. Right, I have none watching so far, but you are live. Okay, there we are. And the live chat. Okay, right. So you guys. Oh, I've got 2 people in there. If one of you was also online on the YouTube chat, that also can help me remind if anybody does try and chat on YouTube. Okay, so that is if we go to what the people on the thing can see, and I decrease the size of that. There we go. Okay, so we're going to talk about the exam and answer any questions you guys have, because in theory you've probably, well, some of you will have started studying for the exam. Some of you will have, in theory, yeah. Some of you will take this as your kickstart to get you thinking about the exam, because now it's Friday and it's already Tuesday, so yeah. Okay, so well, last session, so I did the review session last week to go over basically how the exam was going to run, show what thing would look like the exam. I was told that I could give out a link to students that they could go and see all the previous exams, because there was this lovely folder with all the previous exams and all courses in it. Apparently that didn't work, so I've gone and put them under previous exams for the years that I had the PDFs of, because we're doing digital exams, and so I don't have a PDF I send to the exam office for the last year's exam. But for previous exams, I gave an example of what that looks like as a multi-choice question. You answer one of these and you answer one of these, select an alternative for that, and then there's an example of a short answer, well, the long answer questions, the 6 out of 9 that you have to fill in, and then I tried to give this link. Hopefully that may or may not work for people. Apparently it didn't work for some people, or doesn't work for anyone. I don't have a view on it. That's a student view, so I don't know when you guys can see things or not, because my access is as a lecturer. And so what it is, I copied the 4 of the previous exam PDFs to show the types of multi-choice questions that I set for the game aspect. This is the 2nd year that we've had the experience design title, and so included more of the interaction design component. This course changes next year, so we've made the decision to, because I'm leaving, we're handing it over to ID. So the interaction design department will run this course next year, right? And so I'll still provide some content remotely, potentially, but it will be managed by the interaction design, right? Because a lot of what we do in this course, and I was having a long debate with my wife about this over the weekend, is we actually do a lot of psychology in this course, right? So this course could actually sit somewhere between a computer science department, because we talk about technology, but also a psychology department where we talk about, you know, what engages people, how do you create an experience for a human being. And so understanding how human beings work is a psychology thing rather than a computer thing, right? So this course is partly a philosophy course, partly a psychology course. I also consider this course partly a philosophy course, because some of the things we talk about are around understanding, you know, the ethics of doing some things, right? Is it appropriate to get people addicted to games, right? So, and in some of the changes that are happening to this course, the following students, not 2018 students, but 2019, will have XPhil as compulsory, because we're now in 10U, and so we have 7.5 points of philosophy, a talk by the philosophy department in Trondheim, which I think we should actually include ethics and discussions of metacognition and theories of mind across the whole curriculum, right? Now, all of that intro is a segue to me talking about the way I've designed the multi-choice component of the exam, right? And also the optional bonus and weak question option that you guys have in the exam, right? So how many of you read the introduction part of on the previous exam slides here? So did you guys read that bit? Do you have any questions about it? Is it relatively clear what's going on with the strong and weak options? And the confidence? Right, because you see that's you'll again get that in the exam. That's the front part of the exam, and then that's what a multi-choice question looks like. Right, so it is each question again reminds you of what the grading is that you're selecting. Okay. I do that because it is part of metacognition. Right? One of the things you guys need to learn to do is to think about the way you think, right? Not just to be thinking about how do I answer this question, how do I answer this question, how do I answer this question, how do I do this, right? That's often described as type 1 thinking, right? Where you're in the moment just doing the thing you're doing, right? And that's often very critical for most jobs that people have, is you have to do what you're focused on, right? In fact, for a lot of sportsmen, they talk about, you know, if while doing your sporting activity, you suddenly go to this metacognition thinking about what you're doing, that's when you start making mistakes, right? If you're playing cricket and you've got to have that instant reaction, if you think about what you're doing, it takes too long, right? If you're taking a shot in football, right, and you're trying to take a volley, right? If you think about what you're doing, you've probably missed your opportunity, right? So, whereas in chess, you probably do want to be thinking about what you're doing because you've got time. So in different activities, this idea of being either in the moment and just instantly responding without thinking, or understanding how you came to a decision, right? So doing that, stepping back and then having the metacognition. I'm interested in not your just instant flick answer done, right? I'm interested in you also reflecting on how, like, what leads you to believe what you believe, right? What leads you to give an answer in a particular way? What can you remember where you saw it, how you came to this opinion, how strongly you can back up with evidence the decision you're making. Those are things that I think are important, and so that's why I put them in here kind of practically as a skill rather than just as something to like. So another option is, instead of having this 3-option confidence, I could ask you each to write in after each multi-choice answer, justify why you are answering this, and you'd have to type in text to justify your answer, right? And I don't know if any of you have done a multi-choice exam like that, but One of the things it does do is it makes my job much harder, because I then have to go through and read every justification for every multi-choice answer you give, right? And so it just makes my life much longer much harder to get it all done, right? So it's a balance between those things. We've gone through, and so the exam is now submitted, so I can't change anything about the exam. It went in yesterday at lunchtime. I had Christopher read over the entire exam. Ivan looked through the interaction design aspects of the exam, so it's had 3 eyes go over it. There could still be mistakes. If there are mistakes, I apologize for those. Generally what happens is, if there is a mistake in the exam, it goes in the student's favor, right? So if there's something I've done that is mistaken in the exam, it won't hurt you, right? If something's like, one year I had 2 identical wrong answers on one of the multi-choice questions, right? So I made a mistake and I didn't check it properly. So I had 2 of the wrong answer. And one of the students said, there are 2 of the wrong answers, what should I do? Well, there are 2 of the same answer, what should I do? And I went, so, well, that's just made your life a bit easier, because, you know, you can't answer both, and therefore that's probably not the right answer. And so they had like 1 from 3 instead of 1 from 5. I then went and told everybody else, right? So that individual student didn't get privileged information from me that the rest of you won't hear. So if someone else spots a problem in the exam, they identify it, they ask the question. I think because you'll be spread around a bit, I'll have to go to the room you're in, I'll answer the question if you ask it. I will my general response, and probably half the questions I get will be things like, what did you mean by that, right? When you wrote that, what did you mean? And I go, well, you have to work it out. I'm not going to give you any more information. You know? So that's probably about half of the queries I get. I have to do that too, which is, no, that's what's written there. Part of the question is understanding the question. Right? The other half are where there is a piece of wording that might be tricky to understand. Right? I try and get rid of that. Certainly when I first arrived in Norway, New Zealanders have a different set of vocabulary to other English speakers. Each English version is slightly different. And so occasionally I'd use words which you guys didn't understand at all. And so when I accidentally had one of those in the exam, it was oh, yeah, none of the students know what that word means, do they? Okay, I'll just have to go and tell everybody, oh, this word so it means this thing. So I remember one of the words I tried to use, not in this exam, was the word succinct. How many of you know what succinct means? Yeah, see, it's a word. It's a word I used in New Zealand quite a lot, but you guys just don't seem to use it here. So succinct is being short and brief, but still fulfilling the requirements, right? So if I say something succinctly, it means I say everything that needs to be said, but not more than what needs to be said.
Why not just say concise?
Succinct and concise are different. Concise. Being concise can be quite long, right? So you're concise because you cover everything, right? So you're concise, right? Succinct means that also you have a brevity, you have more brevity included than concise. So concise contains everything but no more, but could be long. Succinct can never be long, right? So concise is a bit like specific. But specific is like also has the specific has absolutely no sort of distance, like size connected to it. Being specific can be very, very detailed. Right? Concise versus succinct. Yeah, concise can be longer than succinct. So, but no, you know, we just have a lot of words for the same kind of thing, right? And if I choose the wrong one, so you guys mostly know concise, but don't know succinct. This is not something I would have known until I got here, right? And so occasionally I had done that. I do that less often now, but if there is a word you read in the exam and you go, I have no idea what Simon's saying there, you can put your hand up and say, what does this word mean? And if I come and see you, so the invigilator, which is a great name for old people, but the invigilators will come to you and they will look at what you're doing and either call me in or say, or give you information. If they call me in and it's a word that is an idiom or a New Zealand phrase, I'll correct it. Then I'll correct it for everyone. Right? So you can ask questions. In terms of coverage, part of my technique while writing questions is to go through the lecture slides and check that things were stated in lecture slides that are published on the Blackboard page, so that you know you have their. For none of the questions that I set and that I checked for Christopher and I, will that not have been introduced in one of the slides in the lectures, right? So you should look through all the slides and you should look through the lectures, right? If you have perfect memory of all of that, then you'd do quite well you'll do very well in the multi-choice section. In the short answer section, in this section here, it is your ability to discuss and elaborate on things that is interesting, right? So I want you to be able to write about what you understand, right? So this is not just a purely memory activity. This is using your understanding from the course to answer these questions. Okay. So yeah, so last session I went through how I did grading and how we reconcile grades. But it's up to you. This is a session for you guys to ask me questions or to clarify things. So and I can go onto the YouTube and go, hey YouTubers, are there any comments on the YouTube? There are 8. Woohoo! We have a bunch of people on the YouTube. And someone said hi. Yay! One person says hi. So there's no other questions on. Oh, and someone left. So as soon as they saw me jump, yeah. So apparently, me being involved is not a good thing. So, do you have any questions about the course, or about how you've been studying, or things that you were studying that went, I don't understand anything about game balance? Playtesting is obviously irrelevant and no one ever does it, and it's not useful.
I noticed one of the older exams in the multiple choice section there's always only one right answer.
Yes.
Some of them seem very similar.
Yes. Yes, some of them do seem very similar. Because I use this particular way of gauging confidence, I'm okay with having relatively evil distractors that are similar and quite good answers. I've added, and so I had a look through last year's exam, the multi-choice exam last year, and I felt it was potentially a bit too serious, right? There were some questions there that were quite mean and were not highly correlated, right, with overall performance in the course and the exam. So I've removed those questions. I have added, I know that at least one of my questions I have a humorous answer, which hopefully you'll pick up as the humorous answer and not answer that as the correct answer. It's the humorous answer. But no, most of the time unlike normal multi-choice exams, usually as a multi-choice exam writer, what you'll find is that they have to come up with 5 alternatives, and so one of the techniques is that you write the right answer, and then you do the inverse of that, right? So you say, it's the most important aspect, right? And then you go, okay, it's the least important aspect, so I can make a single change, copy and paste, and change the wording, right? And you might make one that's another one that's similar to the answer but wrong, and then 2 kind of that are obviously wrong, right? So that's quite common among multi-choice exams, is to be able to have 2 that are obviously wrong and eliminate those quickly, and then move on to the ones that are right, and then narrow those down, and then answer the right one of the 2 that are kind of possible. Because I have this confidence indicator, I generally try and make 4 reasonable alternatives, which means some of them are potentially quite close. And I try and avoid the situation where, and though the way it is worded, there are some multi-choice exams where you answer the most correct answer, right? Which means there may be more than one correct answer. It's just that those aren't as correct as the actual correct answer, right? I try and avoid that because I think that's really harsh. Trying to evaluate the amount of correctness a correct answer is. So yeah, but you know, I've seen them do this. Like there'll be a shape, and they name this shape, and the options are square, rectangle, triangle, and circle. And it is a rectangle if it's a square, right? But square is more specific than rectangle. But it is also, all squares are rectangles by definition, right? And so you'll see people say, oh, you're supposed to answer the most correct answer, and the most correct answer is a square. And I think that's mean. Have any of you had that sort of thing happen in an exam? No? Do you think that's mean? Oh, good. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. It's a mean way of asking a question, is to, the most correct. But so some of them are quite close. I try hard not to have negatively correlated questions, right? And that's where a question, the better you do overall in the course, the worse you do in that question, right? So the students who get that question right are students who are generally doing badly in the course, right? That would indicate that something I've taught is failing the students. The worst example I had that was actually from Otago, where we were doing the first year course, and this would be in 2001. I had an answer that, so the other department, the Information Science Department, we were sharing the exam. They had a multi-choice question where 20% of students got it right, and it's kind of, wow, that's really low. Then I queried it, and I looked at the answers and said, well, I think D is the right answer, but the lecturer had put in B as the right answer. I said, no, I'm looking at the answers. I think D, and I think it was 60% of the students had given D, and 20% had given B, and B was the supposedly right answer. The next year they had the same question, but the teaching assistant was in charge of the course because the lecturer was on sabbatical. It was the same question, same set of answers, and now D was the right answer. Right? And I thought, oh, okay, so that's, and again, about 60% of the people picked D, and I thought, well, okay, that's obviously the teaching fellow who'd been involved in teaching students had been teaching D as the right answer, and the lecturer had thought B was the right answer. So, at least they've cleared it up. The next year, I spotted the question again, and the answer was back to being B because the lecturer had returned from sabbatical. I was going, Oh. So yeah, no, I'm not. I'm like, yeah, and that was a negatively correlated question, right? The better the student was, the worse they did in that question, because what had been being taught wasn't what was in the was being assessed. So I try and avoid that. I've had a couple of questions last year that were pretty much zero correlated. There was no relationship between doing well in the question and doing well overall. So I tried to get rid of those. Right? I've changed most of the questions a bit.
When you answer a question,
yep,
and it will be like, for information is as said by this man, for example, and then sometimes the people are like, who is that man? We need to elaborate more. How do you understand the question?
Right. So when you're in the short answer section here, right, and you say as said by Joe Blogs is the standard, and the sentence is who is Joe Blogs. In an exam answer, I wouldn't expect you to have to elaborate because you are under time constraints, right? And if I know who that person is, you are wasting your time elaborating on who they are, right? Also, if you answer something and you give me something like refer to a person, and you confidently do this, and I have no idea who that person is, I will Google them, right? And I've probably been doing that for the last 10 years when students answer an answer that I don't know, right, where they refer to something I've not heard of or I've not seen. I will Google their answer and I will go and do the research to work out, oh, what do they mean, right? And, if when that links to relevant and useful and interesting information, then that's great, right? That's good marks, right? You've gone beyond the course. It's actually, it's an easier way for us to give you more marks if you are able to bring things in from outside of the course that are relevant, right? And so even though I don't know it, if I can Google it and find it, then it's fine, right? If you're referring to something I cannot Google, yes. So if you refer to personal communications between you and Will Wright or Sid Meier in emails you've sent each other that I can't find, right, then it's much harder for me to verify that piece of information, right? So if you've personally rung and talked to a guy at Valve and they've told you something and I can't Google it to confirm, I have no idea whether that's true or not, right? But if I can Google it, then it should be fine.
Why is the sources not in English?
Well, usually usually I'll be Googling what you've written, right? Which means, and if you want me to Google in another language, bracket it and write it in the language you'd like me to Google it in, right? Don't manually translate it yourself. If there is a piece of information in another language, then you can write it in English, put a bracket, and write the original language lookup that would find that information. And then yes, if I see that you've written in another language, then yep, I'll have to just assume that maybe this is published in French or in German somewhere, and I'll use Google Translate, and if that doesn't help me, then we're in deeper trouble. So Google Translate will usually do a good job if I need to translate, and I can read enough Norwegian that if it's in Norwegian I should be able to find it. So, are any of the other planning to reference non-Norwegian or English language sites? You might reference something in Samisk. So this exam is answered in English. I don't think we haven't got the option. So we've not had anybody request to answer the exam in Norwegian. I'm not sure. I'd have to check the new regulations. I'm not sure if you guys have the right to demand to be able to answer the exam in Norwegian. The course has been taught in English, so English would be the normal way we would answer it. However, if you are struggling, you can use Norwenglish and throw in some Norwegian phrases if you're feeling stressed. And because it's written, it'll look like Norwegian, right? The problem is if you're handwriting and you start mixing between English and Norwegian, it's really hard to read exactly like the letters because your handwriting, okay, maybe your handwriting is all wonderful, but there are some people with handwriting that is absolutely terrible, and if they start switching languages, I have no idea what they're writing. In text, you can write some stuff in Norwegian if you cannot find the word and you're stressed. Use the Norwegian. I can either read it or translate it. It will be fine. Right? And my external can read or translate if you need to. But generally, you should be able to answer in English.
So there's going to be no handwritten notes or anything that you can bring to the exam?
So, no, we've decided that there won't be handwritten notes in the exam. There isn't really a need for them, and they don't help that much. Yeah, no, and that's because we used to 3 years ago allow 1 page of handwritten notes, but because that's not specified anywhere on the web page, and I can't guarantee that people have seen this or are here, I can't give you guys information that's not explicitly published on the website, and because we hadn't published at the beginning of the course, I can't change the exam, right? So it's one of the things they don't let us do. They don't let us change the exam date or change the exam type without, proper notification a long time in advance. So because it's not there, we can't do it, even though it says that the category is in as there could be, but there is not this year because we didn't write it in. In terms of bringing stuff to the exam, it's generally most people don't having done it and talked to people afterwards, they generally don't refer to it. There was nothing on it that helped, so they said it wasn't. They didn't use it. It adds some complexity to running the exam as well, because then every person's sheet has to be checked, and there's a whole bunch of other admin that goes over with that. In terms of the future, I mean, I'd like to have the exam probably a take-home exam rather than a written exam, but yeah, that's now handed over to the interaction design department, so they'll run it the way they feel like. But yeah, no, this year don't bring stuff. Other questions? Yep.
How is the exam split between apps and games?
Okay, so it's split very much like the 2016 exam. So if I go to preview, so we've tried to keep the multi-choice. I've kept from the first half of the course, from up until the time we split into 2 tracks. So that comes from that first part, which means there are a couple of game questions, but the game questions related to what was combined in that first part. For the and so that goes up to question 15, and then question 16 is so the next 3 questions. So the first 3 short answer questions are again from the first half of the course, right? Where so that year we did agile. We had one about clients, and we had one about pitching, right? So those were generic for both apps and games. And then we had 3 questions which were from the design side, so web, users and testing, so more focused on the app side, and then 3 from games, which were spaces, player types, and design elements. And so there are 6 of those 9 that you have to answer. So if you want to just do the app ones, you can do the 3 joined and the 3 apps and ignore the game specific ones. Same for the game people, the 3 joined, skip those 3, do the 3 games. However, that's no requirement. You just have to answer 6 of 9, which means if you want to answer all 3 of the usability and user testing side and the 3 game side and not answer the first 3 questions, that's fine too, right? It's just 6 of 9, right?
And you have to do all the multi-choice?
All the multi-choice, yeah, they're all compulsory. Yeah. So and we have I've gone through and So for some of the questions that I changed this year in the multi-choice, what I did is I went to a multi-choice question. I looked at the answers. I looked at what was the right one. I picked one of the wrong ones and then wrote a question for that one to be the right one. Right? So I kind of did the Jeopardy version of it, right? Where I say, okay, if that's the right answer, what question would generate that answer? Right? Which means if someone had gone through and memorized, okay, these 5 options, this is the right one. These 5 options, this is the right one. These 5 options, this is the right one. And then just been pattern matching that way, they'd certainly get that question wrong, because I changed which of those 5 was the right answer by changing the question that set of block of answers relate to. Right? So I've done that at least once, possibly twice. I can't remember how many times I've done that to it, but yeah, so that's one of the techniques I use for changing my questions, is by writing a bunch of distractors, some of which are real, allows me to rewrite a question so that I can go, oh, okay, well, if that was going to be the right answer, what would be the question? I had considered in the short answer whether I should, in the exam, to have one of to add a section of questions which was where I gave you a set of answers and then your job was to write a question. Right? So I gave you the multi-choice answers and said, write a question that generates this as the only right answer. Right? But then, being gamers, the easiest way of doing that would be say, which sentence contains the phrase, quote, the entire sentence, quote. Ding. So yeah, unfortunately that makes things it's too easy to get that right without doing it the way it's supposed to be done. So and then I have to go into the I want you to ask a good question, and so it's good. So although it'd be a fun way of doing it, it's too hard to actually get it to work properly. Other questions? Have any of you been reading exams? Did you have any reading the lectures or viewing lectures? Did you have any questions from lectures? Topic questions. So I've graded all of assignment 3, and I've done 4 of assignment 4, and Christopher has done all of the app assignment 3s and assignment 4s. So those are all done, but we haven't done the reconciliation of those. I'm going to finish off the grading tonight instead of going to eat lutefisk. So there's a department lutefisk eating thing tonight, but I'm going to finish your grading tonight and playing your games. And get those grades out tonight. I've got, if you go into Blackboard, some of you haven't been in groups which, when your thing was submitted, for some of those people I've found them as I've been marking, and I've manually gone in and added a grade to those students. If you're worried that you're in that situation where you look at the Blackboard and you go to the grading, so when you go to Grade Center, actually I suppose I can turn on, actually I don't get to see what you get to see all the time. So if I go to the full Grade Center, oh, you get to see names. That's probably inappropriate, so I should probably put preview mode on. Let's see if I can go to, do you get, so where do you go to see where you've submitted things? Do you get, okay, so groups, right, right, I'm not signed up for any groups, so I don't get to see, right, okay. If you're concerned that you are not listed as having submitted, now I just see if I can find, having submitted everything properly, write me an email, right, clearly stating that it's IMT1361 and you're worried about the assignments and that you're worried that you're not listed in all of the assignments in all the places you should be. because I will then go back through my emails and check student emails to see who's raised concerns that they're a bit worried that that everything isn't showing up the way it should have. Right? I'll push through the results tonight, and then you guys can look over them and check that you have got everything you think you should have. If you haven't, we can keep resolving that. Even after the exam, it can still be resolved.
Would it be possible for us to access the exam from last year?
So the exam from last year, I have to find a way of extracting it, and I hadn't found a way of extracting it from here yet. And I'm, so I'm not sure if, so I can try and print, but that was, okay, so that looks like it might be giving me, the maximum 5 is not, right, so I hadn't seen that option before, for some reason now showing it to me. Affordances, motivation, taxonomy, fairness, yep, so if I download that, right, okay, so there's sorry. Okay, so that's is that a it's, yeah, I think that does appear to be a Firefox potentially issue. So to fail in Firefox, you can first front side and screeve out. Okay, right. So right. So if I go away from there for the to do this, I can go to Spear. Great. Should go to authoring and go to the 2016 exam. Now there's the print option, and and so I can change that to being a PDF. So save as PDF. And save. Right, and I put that into probably there, and I'll save it there, and then I'll go to Blackboard. Actually, I can probably go into Firefox Blackboard, seeing the streaming people can see now previous exams. Oh, okay. Preview exam. Oh, I'm in exit preview. Sorry. Right. Now, previous exam. File. Browse my computer. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So. Dropbox 1361. Nope, that's nope. We don't want that. We want that. Spear 12th of the 12th. Open. And name, is it 2016? T1362 exam. It's probably the wrong naming convention, but no, yes. Okay, submit. Right, so that has uploaded. Game design exam. Sorry, I got close. So that's now been uploaded. So yes, you can go and have a look at those old questions. Right. So I put that there. If we have a look at that again, it doesn't show you the format that it's in, right? Because this is just the PDF printout. You'll see that that is, I think, all similar. What is introspection? You get those answers. Now, this whole maximum mark 5 marks doesn't mean anything. Don't believe it. It's maximum mark is actually 2. It's just the way that Inspira works. I can't set it up to do what I need it to do. So some of those questions are really, really harsh. So this one I felt was a bit too specific on English language understanding. Legibility versus readability. Do you know the differences in Norwegian? Do you know the difference between legibility and readability in English? Not yet. So it is intelligent. Yeah. That you can make out the things that it is made up of. It is legible, right? For example, if I like legibility, if I go right now at some point cut and cat right there, that like at what point can you see that it's an A, that it's legible that this is an A versus it being a U? Right? Now, readability, can you like, you can read it, like so like the word cut and the word cat is not beyond your comprehension, right? The reading level is like, you can read it if you knew what it was, right? But it might not be legible, or I might have written it, right? And then it's just can't physically see it, right? So it's not legible. You have to squint and try to work out what you just write. Yes, actually see the different characters and symbols in the text, whereas readability refers to how complicated the words are in the text, the words in your text are. So, one of the other things you'll find is, and I'll show you this in here just so you can get an understanding of it. One of the things we do with this is, in the PDF you might find, and I'm not sure if it does this or not, but you might, okay, so that was, yeah. You might find that the right answer is the first answer most of the time, right? But that's because in, oh, it's decided I'm in Norwegian. Points. What? Right. So within here, one of the alternatives we have is under instilling, which I usually have in English, and it's decided to give it in Norwegian. So alternative in 12-file but in random order, right? So basically, it also reorient. Like, so although I might have the answer first in all of the text one I just printed out, in the exam, you guys will get those answers in random order. Right, so if you look over the guy over there and you see he's marked A, that might be B, C, F, well, B, C, E, D, C on your sheet, because the answers will be in random order. Okay, it tries to prevent people seeing from a distance and trying to work out, you know, oh, it looks like they've done like all C's or something. But yeah, so I've ticked that alternative for pretty much all the questions. So. Okay, other questions? Yep. Well, you're still trying to get 10 marks, right? So each of them are worth 10 marks. I generally don't give lots of marks for a single sentence, so you don't get like 5 marks for a single sentence. So I would expect you to be able to make about like at least 10 points about the thing, right? So 10 things you have, like maybe sentences you say or something, right? And you can get multiple marks out of a single sentence if you say multiple interesting things in the sentence, right? But generally, yeah, you could write one very, very long sentence with a bunch of comments. So that's what I mean. But, you know, about 10 things makes it easier for me to give you 10 marks, right? Also, what you generally do is, I think it's 4 hours you guys have got for this exam. I believe it's a 4-hour exam is what you said today. So it's a 4-hour exam, which means you have 240 minutes for 75 marks. Okay. Well, that's really hard to see. Why didn't any of you say anything?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to see what classroom or where we should have the exam yet.
Those should be posted on FS Web, so you should be able to find it per your name.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
Didn't see any classroom.
Did anyone else see Classroom associated with their name? It might not have been posted yet.
Okay.
If
It has.
it has, when? Like just recently, or right? So check again now. If it's still not there, well, maybe give it till tonight, right? And if it's still not there, then go and see them tomorrow morning, and yeah, we can try and resolve that. So anyway, so yeah, so the short answer, as I said, you've got 240 minutes. You have 75 marks. So if you try and work that out, that's probably what? So 150 is 2, so 3 is 225. So if you gave 3 minutes per mark, that would be, yeah, 225 minutes. So if you have 3 minutes per mark, it's a 10-mark question, therefore it's 30 minutes. Right? So if you're spending more than half an hour writing your answer to the short answer question, you're probably eating into your short answer marking time. Right? But that's 225, which means it still gave you an extra 15 minutes leeway. Right? So in a 4-hour exam, you've got half an hour per answer, right? So if you look at your answer and say, I could write that in 5 minutes, you probably could write some more stuff. Right? Now, I recognize in Norway you guys tend to have exams that are longer, so you've got more time to write. When I was a student, I tended to have a lot to say. As you can imagine, I still have a lot to say. But so I wrote, so there was one exam I left early. Every other exam I was still writing by the end of the exam. Right? So I just keep writing. That's my result. I just keep expressing things I know about the topic. So, you know, I have given sort of 8s and 9s to quite short answers that were really good. But, you know, you've got half an hour, right? Which is quite a long time, right? So you should be able to type more than 2 sentences. Yeah.
Is there too long, short answer?
I've not taken any marks off someone for being too long in an exam, right? I have lowered someone's grade for being too long in a written report, right? Where I'd asked for a 20-page report and they'd done 60 pages. And it's a, you know, that's just taking the piss at that point, right? So yes, they just filling stuff up to make it long doesn't help. But no, the generally I wouldn't say that being too long is going to be a problem. Where it is if you like muddy the thing, and by being long, what you do is you're trying to hedge your bets and say, right, he either means this or this, so I'll write about both of them, right? Which means it tells me you don't know about this because you didn't know which one I was asking about, right? So just kind of covering all your bases by writing everything you know about everything in an answer might mean, well, you don't differentiate between the right and the wrong stuff, or the relevant and the irrelevant material. If you are confused and you say, well, I don't know whether you're referring to this or that, clearly state what your assumptions are about the question and say, by this I assume you mean, and explain what you've assumed I've meant, and then answer that, right? And you know, yes, if you've got time, you can go back and write the other. However, if you had meant this would be my answer, right? Now, if you make that clear that these are 2 different interpretations of the question, I'm willing to mark the one that is the right interpretation, right, or the one I intended. If you have an unintended interpretation that is true, then I will mark it as if I had asked that question, right? But if you just randomly answer something that is not at all like that I can't connect to the question, I can't grade it as being, oh yeah, that's really relevant. Well, that's really interesting. It's just not relevant to the question I asked, right? If, however, you can explain how you've interpreted the question and why your answer fits the question, then I can try and give you grades for if I had asked the question the way you interpreted it, right? I wouldn't try and play that strategy though, right? If you've got an answer you've pre-prepared that you really are happy with and I've not asked that question, and then you just try and convince me that the question I actually asked was the one you answered, yeah, that's not a great strategy, right? But because if you are obviously taking the piss, I'll probably recognize it. But, okay, so apart from that, I mean, yeah, studying, going through the lectures, having them play at 1.5 speed. Try and so when you look at the short answer questions, and if we go back, I'll just check are the YouTubers giving me grief for not doing something? Hello YouTubers, are you giving? Oh, there's a question. On the website for the course it says that can be specified handwritten material is allowed. What goes under specified? Because we did not specify clearly in the text of the course, there are no materials. It is partially It's the other way. It's one of the no, not principally. Of moving the descriptions of courses from HIG to NTNU registration system. So yeah, when things move between the way we register courses, that code got copied over, and it shouldn't have been. So, sorry, but you know,
So nothing's allowed.
nothing's allowed. Just don't take anything. Because it doesn't say what the thing is, it's nothing. If I'd written it in the course description, then you could have taken something. But I believe some places have wired internet. Yes. I don't know if all of them have wired internet, but I know a lot of these are in the atrium, and so you've got a cable. You can get to the cable if you bring your internet cable. You can plug in. Other questions? I have 12 people online. No other questions from online people? I can see that they're still quite a long way behind me. How far behind are you? Yep.
You're using a safe exam browser, right?
Yes.
And when do we get the password for using and stuff like that?
The code is given to you in the exam. Right? So you get it. I think either with a piece of paper or written on the board. I think it might be a piece of paper.
So if you just have it downloaded, that's okay.
Yeah, you can download the Safe Exam browser and have it ready to go and be able to start up, and then, you know, so long as it's installed and you get to the point where it says enter your code. I think it says enter your code, and then you enter your code. That's the code you need for the specific exam.
I try just entering it now, and it says that I need this on .sc file or something like that. I maybe have to start it through Inspire or whatever.
Yeah. I think you might need to start through into here, but you won't be able to load the exam yet. Yeah, I know. What questions are left, or do you need a break and then come back and ask more questions, or you guys have more questions?
Just one thing I wondered about. It was just more the two development methodologies. It was extreme programming and then Scrum.
That would be two methodologies you refer to. Yep.
Yeah, like how is Scrum implemented in a project? Like if someone were to say, let's use Scrum.
Okay.
What would that
That can be a relatively long question. So I can do that, but if you want to have a break and then come back and answer that, or do you want me to just answer it? And if there are other questions, we'll take a break. But if you guys don't have anything specifically for me around study, no. Okay, I'll answer the Scrum question. So if you go and look online, there are plenty of descriptions of Scrum. Most of our master students are using Scrum in their applied computer science project. The Scrum methodology is an agile methodology where you create a set of issues, right? And you say, right, these are the things that need to be done. Right? You then meet and have generally a 1 or 2 week period between kind of planning meetings. You sit and you say, right, what are we going to do in the next 2 week period? And you usually sit down with someone like a product owner, they call it, a person who's interested in the product, as well as a group of people who are the developers. And so the developers kind of work out how big these tasks are, how much time they'll take, and how important they are. And that's why you have the person interested in the product there. And then they put them into the sprint, into the backlog for that 2 week session. You then, as part of the process, instead of having a project manager in Scrum, you have a facilitator, right? So in the Scrum methodologies, from the animal models I'd use, basically the Scrum Master is the wolf, right? The Scrum Master's job is to, they're a kind of wolf combined with owl / rabbit. Their job is, the Scrum Master is there to help with meetings and to help make sure people have done predictions and to kind of run the meeting, but not allocate roles. They don't tell you what you're going to do. They're not managing the project and saying, all right, you'll do that, you'll do that, you'll do that. In an agile methodology, particularly in the Scrum methodology, the idea is each of you have ownership over the project. You want to get it done, so you will pick tasks that you can do, right? So rather than being told what to do, you get to choose what to do, right? So that's part of the Scrum methodology, is that it is developer driven, what tasks that developer has to do. It also includes things like daily stand-ups. So at the beginning of each day, and they have a stand-up meeting, because if you're standing, you spend less time in the meeting. Once you sit down, you kind of spend longer. So you stand up and you say what you did yesterday and what you plan to do today. So you just have a quick round, so everybody kind of have an idea of what everyone else is up to. And you have retrospectives where you go over everything that happened and what the challenges were and what problems you're stuck on. Right? So for you guys, you could and the idea of the 2-week block, right, for a sprint. If you were doing shorter sprints, say 2-day sprints or 3-day sprints, you would do work for a few days and then say, right, we're gonna look at what we got achieved. Did we complete everything we thought we were going to be able to do? If we didn't, let's replan anything that came up. We'll put it into the log of things that need to be done, and then we'll look at it again and say, right, now what do we think is important, right? So you basically, you're replanning in the standard Scrum, every 2 weeks you do a replan of what's going to be done, rather than Waterfall, where you try and sit at the beginning and see the whole project and plan across the whole project. In Scrum, you kind of go, well, all of these things need to be done, but we're not sure which order they'll need to be done, or we're not sure of all the things that need to be done, all the details of each thing that needs to be done. So we'll have these replanning meetings.
Is there a limit to how many important tasks the team is working on? Is it like, okay, we get 10 tasks, we're going to work on 10 tasks, if one is done, and then we find something else or something like that?
So it depends on the group. So one way of limiting down. So there is an issue with number of tasks, particularly number of small tasks. So depending on the company you're in, some companies use one approach is to use something called story points, where you talk about complexity rather than the time something will take. And so with story points, when you talk about that length of the size of a task, you're talking about sort of complexity of the task. Some companies will say you don't have any task that takes less than half a day. Right? If it takes less than 4 hours, it doesn't get written down. Right? It should be part of some other task. Right? And so you shouldn't be having to select from your set of tasks to do more than twice a day. Right? You should pick in the morning, say, right, I'll do this morning, and then at lunchtime you can pick a new task and do that for the afternoon. Right? So the ties of tasks, that's the kind of smallest block of work they would consider reasonable. Which means if you have 20 developers and you've got 2-week sprint, so in theory that's 10 days, 20 developers, that's 200 day units, which is 400 half-day units. So the maximum number of tasks would be 400 tasks. You wouldn't expect to write 400 tasks for 20 people for 10 days, because that would mean every task was a half-day task. Usually things will be 3 or 4 day tasks, right? Or maybe you could have a week-long task. Anything more than a week is probably too long and would need to be split, right? So the idea is that you should probably be somewhere between like 1 unit and 10 units, if 10 units is a week, right? So that's how they would manage the size of tasks. But different companies do things in different ways. Some companies will use hours and say 1 hour is the minimum a task should be allocated. Otherwise, you just clog up with like massive numbers of tasks, and it becomes unwieldy. So So yeah, that's, I mean, basically those sort of constraints is what people use. And we didn't show you Jira, but we use, so for the master students and the bachelor students, we are so we have a local install of a product called Jira, which is a project tracking tool. And so I need to go login, and I need to remember my login now. I think I'm Simon. No, I might be Simon M. Yes. Okay. I won't say the moment. So these are this is Jira. We have boards, and so if I have a look at, you know, these are the master students boards. So these give you this was at the end of the sprint. This was their to do. These were their in progress. These were in resolved, and that one was done. So you have all these tasks, you're moving them through, you have like the full list of issues that you had that they're working on. This has, I think that's just the list of open issues. So this is server handle file upload, right? So get the server to deal with uploading files. And it's currently unassigned, but if it was in a current sprint, so if I switch filters and all issues, you'll see that I can find some that have, if I go earlier in the project, oh, that was unassigned. That was unassigned. Come on, guys, they should have assigned some of these. There we go. So assignee is to Tadia, the reporter is to Michael. It's closed, it was a task, it was major importance. You can see here what other tasks it relates to in blocks, and so mentioned in their daily scrums, right? So they have a daily scrum note that they were taking, where someone would note down what was discussed in the daily scrum, so you could track the progress. Here are so some of the comments. So Michael and Harry both commented, and this also links to the version control system Bitbucket in this case, and so when you commit, it puts those commits into here and shows you which parts of the files, that parts of the code you've been working on relates to this. So there is a large software engineering stuff you can do with Scrum, right? And this is a tool that supports Scrum. So we get much deeper into it as you go through the degree. Okay, there are no other questions. If there are no other questions online, I'll get back to grading and get all of those done. In terms of grades, there are a few A's, there are some B's, there are quite a few C's, a couple of D's, and I think someone submitted a README saying they hadn't done any work, so I think I failed that, because they're just sitting in a README saying I didn't really do anything, but I thought about it, and here's my half-page explanation of what I thought about. Isn't a pass. Right? So I'm not going to pass you for that. Right? So yes, you can fail by not doing work, right? So though most people who have done work have done a reasonable job, right? There's nobody so far, right? Maybe some of you, like one of the games I've played was designed too hard. So I keep telling you, don't treat me like I'm an expert. Treat me like I'm a normal person. So if your game is extremely difficult to play, then that can be challenging for me. Okay. Any last things before because rather than take a break and then come back if we've not got any questions, I thought we'd just finish. So, and nothing online. I'll just check online. Nope, no one else has said anything online, and so 12 people. I'm up to 12 views. It's like almost as many people not in the room as there are in the room.
And off topic, but do you know where that door leads?
There is a cupboard in there. Yes, I've been in that door because I had the same question of where does that lead. It's a storage cupboard.
Okay.
Yeah. There is also some weird storage cupboards around this place. So there's like a really long one that goes underneath this whole area here. There are a bunch of weird storage cupboards. Most of them are locked now. But sometimes they had them open, so I'd go exploring just to see, where things lead, because I'm also interested. But no, it is an odd door to have as a random door, but it's just a storage cupboard. Okay. If there are no other questions for you, good luck on the exam. If you have any other questions, you can email me. I can't guarantee I'll answer quickly, but I will try and answer any questions. And remember, if you're worried about your assignment marks, email me with your concern. Oh, and did any of you do the course? Like I saw, I think 30 people I'd seen did the course survey. If there's anything else you want to tell me about the course or any feedback you have that you think makes the course better, you can either give it through this feedback form or just tell us, email us. So how did the other exams go?